1, example 4. In this example, we're going to find what the interval of convergence and then the function represented by the geometric series. So we're actually going to do this in reverse order. And the first thing we're going to do is find the function that represents it. So to do that, I got to just start writing out some of the terms. So it's going to be 3 to the 0, x to the 0, plus 3 to the 1, x to the 1. Notice each time I'm increasing n, this number here, by 1. So the next one is 3 squared, x squared, plus 3 cubed, x cubed, plus 3 to the 4th, x to the 4th, and so on. So then I get anything to the 0 power is 1, plus 3x, plus 9x squared, plus 27x cubed, plus dot, dot, dot. Or I can write that as 1 plus 3x plus 3x squared plus 3x cubed. So notice the thing that's inside every time is going to be that 3x. So our first step is to identify our first term. So a sub 1 is 1. And we get that because, again, that's the first term of our series. The next step is to identify r. So r is the number inside of the parentheses every time. So it's this 3x. So r is actually equal to 3x. And it's okay that it's a variable. That's perfectly fine. So now we're going to go ahead and find the function to represent the sum. So remember that the sum of a converging series is a sub 1 divided by 1 minus r. So our first term is 1, and it's 1 minus 3x. So this function represents the sum. And the reason there's an x is we can plug a couple x values in that'll work. So what we need to do is find these x values and what they can be where it's going to converge. So we know that a sequence or a series will converge if the absolute value of r is less than 1. Okay, well, I know r is 3x. And this means that negative 1 is less than 3x, which is less than 1. And now basically you just solve for x. So I divide everything by 3. And I get 1/3 is less than x, which is less than 1/3. And we call this the radius of convergence. So this series will converge as long as x is between negative 1/3 and 1/3. If x is 5 or 10 or even 1, then this series will not converge. So sometimes it'll ask you to find a radius of convergence. Okay, so I want you to try this one on your own. What I recommend is that you write a couple terms out to identify your a sub 1 and to identify what r is. So you might want to simplify the sequence or series a little bit first. All right, so here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is write out a couple terms. So I get negative 1 to the 0, x plus 1 to the 0, plus negative 1 to the 1, x plus 1 to the 1, plus negative 1 squared, x plus 1 squared, and so on. So I can see my first term is just going to be 1. Then it's going to be minus x plus 1 plus x plus 1 squared, and so on. So I can see that it's going to alternate. And I can see that the inside is going to be x plus 1. So I get that a sub 1 is equal to 1. And r is going to be negative x plus 1. Another way you can find r really easily is rewrite this piece as negative x plus 1 to the n. Because when you separate them, you're going to get the negative 1 to the n. So you can see really clearly that this is r. Also, if you have an alternating series, your r is going to be negative. That's another big hint. If you have an alternating series where the sign changes from positive to negative, r is going to be negative. So the first thing we need to do now is find our sum. So we get this is equal to a sub 1 over 1 minus r. So it's 1 over 1 minus negative x plus 1. So the negatives are going to cancel. And I get 1 over 2 plus x. So this function will represent my sum depending what x I'm looking at. So depending what x is will depend what my sum is. So now we have to find the radius of convergence. So I know that the absolute value of r has to be less than 1. So the absolute value of negative x plus 1 is less than 1. So the absolute value can actually just get rid of that negative for me. So I get negative 1 less than x plus 1 less than 1. Subtract 1 from all sides, I get negative 2 and 0. So my radius of convergence is negative 2 to 0. Again, that means that if I pick an x value bigger than 0 or less than negative 2, this series will not converge.